Greetings and welcome to the Saco School Board meeting for Wednesday, November 9th, 2022. Call this meeting to order at 7:04 p.m. Let the record reflect that all school board members are present with the exception of School Board Member LaFortune, who has been excused. I'd like to invite you all to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you very much. Moves us on to item 3 of the agenda, and that is approval of the school board meeting minutes dated October 26, 2022. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Mr. Mayor,
School Board Member Truman.
I move we approve the school board meeting minutes dated October 26, 2022.
Second.
Motion's been made by School Board Member Truman, second by School Board Member Preble. Any discussion? Roll call vote on the minutes. School Board Member Archie?
Yes.
School Board Member Preble?
Yes.
School Board Member Richard?
Yes.
School Board Member Gale?
Yes.
School Board Member Truman?
Yes.
School Board Member Johnston?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0. Brings us to item 4 of the agenda. Are there any adjustments? Seeing no one seeking adjustments, moving on to item 5. Any correspondence this evening? No correspondence. Moving on to item 6, public session. If there's any member of the public who would like to address the school board, please come forward and be heard. With nobody seeking recognition, moving on to item 7, and that is the superintendent's report. Superintendent Ray.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Just a couple of items for tonight is first, our applications for electric school buses were not successful in the first round. Those were awarded to communities that met the rural guidelines, but we are on a wait list. What a wait list for electric school buses looks like, I do not know, but we will continue to apply as this is one of what will probably be 5 rounds, as there's $5 billion available for electric school buses over the next several years. And so we'll keep trying and hopeful that we'll be able to add those to our fleet. We are working on our transportation plan, and we've had some luck with finding a couple of spare drivers to come in, but at the same time, a couple of people have to be out. I communicated with Rainey today that after the Thanksgiving holiday, we'll start the plan for one Arundel bus with Thornton Academy picking up half of those runs, and we're hoping that we'll be able to make it through the winter without having to cancel trips. Reminder: no school on Friday for any parents who are at home. Just remember that Friday's a no school day. I did want to mention that while this affects our 9 through 12 students in vocational programming, we will be adding, we were awarded a grant at the vocational center, and we'll be able to add 3 new offerings in the coming years for students. One of those in the culinary program, hospitality program, and an athletic training program will be available to students in the region. Principals and staff have started the budget process. That process will mean that they'll have that first draft of the budget to me prior to the winter vacation. Then we'll start going through line by line and hoping that by early February, it's in statute, that the DOE will be able to provide us subsidy reports. As I mentioned last time, our valuation in Saco was at 7% increase in city valuation, which is 1% higher than the state average. That's not necessarily where you want to be, but 1 percentage point hopefully will be offset by some of our increased enrollments. Substitutes. I'm going to say it every single week: substitutes, substitutes, substitutes. If you know anybody, if you're at any community events, we need people to talk up becoming a substitute. Our kids need you. That is one of the most frustrating things that we deal with right now for teachers and for admin, is just not having enough bodies in the school. For our administrators, they end their day thinking about when they put their head on the pillow of what it's going to be like in the morning, and then they wake up at 6 a.m. and adjust to those challenges. We are planning a set of videos that we are going to make to release to the public at some point in the near future, kind of promoting the idea of the benefits of substitutes. We will, if anybody's out there and you say, hey, I just got Mondays I can do it, I'll hire you every Monday to do that. If you've got Mondays and Fridays, we've got a job for you for Monday and Friday. We need people, and so please, if you're interested, reach out to us and we'll help you work through the process. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Superintendent Ray? No questions. Moving on to item 8, Chair Report, with the Chair not here, the Vice Chair. Richard, anything to report? No. Thank you. Moving on to item 9, Staff Reports. There are no staff reports in the agenda. That brings us to item 10, a readout of Board Subcommittee meeting minutes. The Policy and Personnel Committee has a next meeting on November 9th, tonight at 5:30. Finance and Infrastructure Committee, next meeting is November 30th at 4:30. And the Curriculum Committee has no meeting scheduled at this time.
And Bill, can we just also, just as a reminder, knowing that that next school committee meeting is the 30th, that we don't have one the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, which would be 2 weeks from now, just mark that in your calendar, just, it'll be easy to.
Thank you for that reminder. That brings us to item 11, old business. There's no old business this evening, so that brings us to item 12, new business. Item A was new hires. In your packet, there was a memorandum on new hires. Is there a motion?
There's none needed.
No motion is needed, but you see there's a memorandum with names and so forth of new hires. With that, item B, also in your packet, is a memorandum on resignations that does not need any action at this time. That brings us to item 12C, construction update, DOT meeting and land appraisals. Superintendent Ray.
Just updating on the last couple of meetings that have occurred since 2 weeks ago. The Meg attended a meeting with some members of the city that were there as well, Oak Point, DOT staff, to begin the conversations about traffic coming in and out of the possible clear parcels that we are looking at. They actually, I believe they're doing it tomorrow. Intersection studies and tests will be done just to count the traffic flow in certain places. They had some ideas about what could happen on Route 1, and we are really pushing that timeline and asking them and working with the DOT to do as much as they can now, because we don't want this delayed into the spring, because that would push us back. So traffic studies have begun. Land appraisals, as you know, we've talked a lot about how there needs to be 2 land appraisals of property that we are interested in purchasing. I've solidified companies for both of those, and we hope that by early January we will have that report. Drummond & Woodsum has started the process to draft a purchase option for the property so that we can continue to move through all of the hurdles that we need to do. And then finally, Meg and I met with the DOE the other day just to kind of, we're trying to meet with them every 2 to 3 weeks just to keep them on, like, up to date with everything that's going on. The real next task now that we have is to look at space allocations within the schools, like how much space will we get? Looking at all of those pieces, and they have some information that they received from Oak Point about space allocations that they are reviewing, and then they hope to have their review done by, we get an email this afternoon, November 30th, which will then trigger another meeting with them to discuss. So a lot of different things happening with the construction project.
Thank you. Any questions for Superintendent Ray on the construction update? Seeing no questions,
Sorry, Mr. Mayor.
School Board Member Gale.
Just on the straw poll, when was that going to be again? I'm sorry, I
So
saw it somewhere.
the thought is that it will be sometime, hopefully in January. But all of those other pieces kind of have to get done before that, and the biggest one is going to be the DOT piece behind that. That's probably at this point, that's one of the top one or two things that we need to get a lot of information on. And Meg learned a lot about turning lanes and road diets during that meeting, so she's well versed on it.
That brings us to item D. Item D is an October 1st enrollment memorandum with a historical data memorandum. Superintendent Ray.
Yes, so we always kind of talk enrollments, and what I have for you is a snapshot of kind of the completed form that goes to the state to show where we are enrollment-wise, and I just wanted to go over that a little bit. And what you can see from this is it gives you a comparison from last year's October 1 enrollments to this year's October 1 enrollments, and it's kind of looking at the bottom section. What you will see, if I want to kind of start on the right-hand side with the last column, and you'll see that our pre-K counts are up 66 students from last year. And, you know, that corresponds nicely with the about 63 or 4 students that we received from our new neighbors overall. And if you jump to the other side, though, you will see that our pre-K through 8 counts is where 79 students grew. So on the 9-12 side, we were -8. Now, one of the things that is if it wasn't for the new neighbors, we would still be up a little bit on the pre-K through 8 side. But it's also important to remember that there was a lot of students who did not attend for COVID-related purposes over the last couple of years. A lot of people homeschooled, and those have come back. If you go to like the middle column, where you'll see economic status, you'll see that in that category, we have 30 students less that would have qualified for the free lunch program in that situation, so that will kind of hurt us a little bit on the subsidy sheet. You'll also see that there is an increase in special education counts, up 6.38% throughout the districts, and you can see that our ELL increase is 141%. So we know where these numbers come from. I think that at the end of this, just as we look at the subsidy student counts, knowing that you're talking student counts and property valuation, the increased student counts should offset that 1% higher valuation than the state. When you kind of mathematically play that out, this will put us in a pretty good spot, I think, as we move into the 279 in the budget process based off state subsidy.
Any questions for Superintendent Ray on the enrollment data? School Board Member Gale?
Just a quick question on the economic status counts, and then on that second memo on the historical. So is the driver for this the free and reduced lunch sheets that get submitted?
Correct. And as you know, that with all kids qualifying automatically, that's a real I don't want to say disincentive, but you don't have that ability to say, here, return that form because something may be different for you. So that's something that a lot of school departments are experiencing across the state. We continue to push to have discussions about, because our state is one of the, I think it's at 3 that continued over in the nation of providing free and reduced lunch for all students, that form that comes from the National School Lunch Program may not be the best indicator or tool for us to use in the future. So superintendents have had conversations with the commissioner, with Maine School Management about what could we do in order to find a different metric for poverty rates.
And does the fact that Thornton Academy doesn't participate in that hurt? Because on the historical memo, there's a column for free and reduced lunch pre-K through 12. So does that 625 number for 2022 through 2023?
No.
Does that include 9 through 12?
So the Thornton Academy number will not be hurt one way or the other, because what they do for students who, for communities that tuition, whether that be 6 through 8 or 9 through 12, they look at the rate that you have and apply that same rate to that population. So you don't have any ability to increase, which typically all schools see participation of returning those forms over time actually decrease at the high school level. So there's no harm in this. There's no harm by that process for us.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Moving on to item E, a fall NWEA presentation.
Good evening. Feels like not that long ago that we looked at our post-COVID data last fall, and this is an opportunity to revisit those data points in context of this fall's testing, as well as the winter and spring testing, which we've reviewed briefly prior, but doing a bit of a deeper dive in the fall so that we can really understand where students are. So I apologize for repeating this, but I feel like it's incredibly important each time to kind of talk about what the assessment is and how to see it in context. The NWEA is put out by Northwest Evaluation Association, and the name of the test itself is Measures of Academic Progress, or MAP. We administer 3 assessments: math, reading, and language use. This year, we are administering it 3 times. The only change in grade levels as compared to last year is language usage, which was last year required by the state of Maine and this year was not required by the state of Maine. And in discussing with administrators early in the fall, we felt it was appropriate to administer that for our 6th through 8th graders so that we could really understand the trajectory of their progress, but did not find it to be as useful or valuable to test students and use that additional time for our elementary students. It is an adaptive assessment, so that means that the question difficulty changes in response to student answers. It's a combination of multiple choice, drag and drop, and fill-in test, and it's all computer-based. It's norm-referenced data, so they look at how students compare to their age and grade level peers, and that data is collected from 2015 to 2020, and then they use that normative data to apply to future years. All of the predictions about success are based on 50th percentile, so very similar to like height and weight when you go to the doctor for your kiddo. Their projection is based on what 50% of the population can or can't do. So when we talk about students reaching their growth target or their growth goal, that goal is determined from what 50% of the population can do, which is a little bit different than the kind of goal setting that we would do for ourselves, in which you're trying to make that an achievable goal. It's mathematically based on the 50th percentile. And also, those norms are not accounting for COVID. They are based on a normal year. So though we're still using those percentiles, they're not an immediate feedback of where the nation is in this test session. We're still comparing to normative data prior to COVID. A couple of other things to kind of keep in mind. This is only one data point. We like to use these with classroom assessment points. Trends over time can help provide context. Saco has used this assessment in some variation with different grades since 2015, so that does make it a helpful over time comparison. And it was adapted for use as the main state assessment in January, and this spring they're going to further refine and adjust to what they're calling a through-year assessment that will still use the same platform but may include some additional changes so that it can be used as the main state assessment, which is kind of a nice feature for us because it means that students are taking this 3 times a year without the added MEA testing that can take multiple hours in the spring on top of NWEAs. So it's really just the NWEA for standardized tests at this point. So now we get to what I consider the fun part, which is the actual data from this fall. On this graph, you can see the percentile rank for each grade level, 1st through 8th grade, with the 50th percentile being right in the middle there. Our math scores are in the dark blue, with language use in the lightest blue and reading in the teal there. Here isn't where we necessarily see a whole lot of patterning yet, because this is just that single test session that we are looking at for all grade levels and all tests given. So now we're going to jump into cohort growth over time and look at those historic scores for cohorts of students. So first we'll jump into reading. And it is a little bit tricky to see, but hopefully you can zoom in on your own screens. Really what we're looking for here is differences between that gray star, which is the 50th percentile, and the bar, which shows Saco student achievement. So our current 2nd graders are scoring above national average in the reading NWEA map. Our 3rd grade students were slightly above average last fall. There were some pretty big gaps throughout the course of the year, but we're closing that gap back to average now with their progression. Our current 4th grade is just above average now and experienced some gaps below average over the course of last year. When we look at our current 5th grade, we see kind of a similar pattern to 4th grade with some lapses below average, but squeaking up to just above average in this test session. For our 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, there are some similar patterns that we see here with respect to student achievement, and continuing for the most part, with the exception of 6th grade and 7th grade for one test session, performing above average. And it's what I kind of like to see is the fall to fall, that we're really making gains over that national average in a greater amount. So if you look at the fall of the year prior and the fall of the current year, we're kind of widening the gap above average between that average and Saco, which is great to see, because that means that over time, students are, on average, on the whole, gaining additional skills over as compared to nationally normed peers. This kind of just shows, on average, all grades 2 through 8, with that kind of center line being what percent are they above or below average. Our spring test session was a bit of an anomaly, but other than that test session, we kind of see that pre-COVID pattern, the lapse, and then overall a clearer trajectory of making progress, again, with the exception of spring. And our language use, we don't have the same level of historical data because last year is the first year that we took that assessment. So this is just this falls scores for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, and you can kind of see across grade levels that nice and clear pattern of gaining over the national average as students age in grade levels. So just to kind of summarize some of the things that we saw in that data, there is a general continued pattern of recovery post-COVID. Our strongest sub-goal area, which you can't really tell on any of those charts, is consistently in vocabulary acquisition and use, which is a sub-goal area that appears in the assessment grades 3 and up. The areas of weakness are really mixed across the grade levels, but interestingly, K2 consistently is lowest in foundational skills, which kind of speaks to the word study and the need for implementing that curriculum cohesively in our lower grades. Language use is consistently outpacing national norms for our middle school students. Some of our next steps are one child study in one of our buildings that's really looking at individual student data and then figuring out how to close gaps for individual students. And then our word study pilot, which will help to continue to bolster those foundational reading skills and help students be able to comprehend better than in the upper grades. Next, we'll take a look at math in those kind of same visuals, but with the scores for mathematics. So here you can see our current first and second grades are maintaining above national average scores in this test session, and that pattern for second grade is that kind of clear spreading of the gap, moving, outpacing the national average, which is great to see. Here you can see our current third, fourth, and fifth grade, with fifth grade particularly still performing below average post-COVID, and we could certainly entertain a lot of interesting discussions about what skill gaps there are, especially with something as rote as mathematics, and that how those gaps present themselves over time may look different depending on what age or grade level was missed for students. So we have our fourth grade outpacing the national average, and third and fifth grade just being slightly below that, with some of those gaps in fifth grade and third grade pretty close to getting to that national average. And when we look at 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, we still do see some scores below national average, but we're kind of closing that gap or pacing to be ahead of that as students progress over time. So that is a promising thing to see, but we certainly want to be pushing that at the middle school level over that national average as we continue to implement a new math program. We're hopeful that that will help address some of those issues. Here's that over time comparison to national average, the pre-COVID and post-COVID. In math, we see that summer slide is pretty consistent with the national average. That national average goes down in the fall, and there is a bigger gap in summer slide for mathematics than there is for reading. There is still that pattern of recovery post-COVID, and the areas of strength and weakness when we look at those sub-goal areas do not show patterns across grade levels or test sessions, which is both good news and bad news. It's frustrating when you can't really see an area to target, but it means that we're generally, curricularly speaking, hitting the marks that we need to hit with individual students performing in different areas, so that we really just need to be targeting individual student sub-goal area weaknesses. This year we are in a full implementation of Eureka Math Squared for K-5, so we're really excited about that, and that programming being able to provide additional support for students, and into our 6th through 8th full implementation of Reveal Math, which is new to Saco and also new to have all 6th through 8th grade teachers utilizing the same core resources. So next steps is our building leadership team reviewing grade level and teacher level data, academic coaches working to support teacher analysis, looking at individual student data to inform classroom supports and pull-out interventions, so students that are receiving interventions and making gains may no longer need those interventions, and students that maybe aren't showing the gains we would hope might be pushed into those slots. And then we will be sharing the reports with parents during parent-teacher conferences, and if folks are unable to make those, sending those home to ensure that parents have an opportunity to view those reports for their children. Thanks for taking the time to listen. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Assistant Superintendent Parkhurst? School Board Member Johnston.
Thank you. Meg, could you speak a little bit more, because I may not have understood everything you said, but perhaps a little bit more detail on both the reading and language and also the math in terms of the areas, well, for instance, with reading and language, the areas of weakness are mixed across grade levels, and in the case of math, you found that there was not as much variation, or?
So the sub-goal areas, which I didn't go into a whole lot of detail in the graphs, but just in the reporting out, in reading, there were some consistencies in the areas of strength of the sub-goal of vocabulary being a strength across multiple grade levels and multiple test sessions. And the other two kind of components are key ideas and details, and then a more inferential comprehension. So those two neither one is necessarily a weakness over time in reading, but that vocabulary stands out as a pattern of strength for students across grade levels. In math, it's pretty mixed all across the board. So different grade levels have different strengths depending on the test session, which generally indicates that while individual students may be struggling with certain components or having success in certain sub-goal areas, there isn't necessarily a curricular gap or hole or particular strength that's providing students kind of a leg up. I would say the vocabulary use and acquisition indicates that our curriculum is doing a good job of exposing students to a wide range of vocabulary and helping them to use that vocabulary in context given that pattern of strength.
Thank you very much. That's helpful.
Any further questions? Seeing no questions, thank you very much.
Thank you.
That brings us to new business, item F, a second reading of policies, policy BEDB-R-agenda format, BEDG-minutes, ADDA, transgender student policy, ADDA-R, transgender student policy procedure, DJ-R, administrative procedure, federal procurement manual for main school units, CB, school superintendent, CC, administrative organization, CHD, administration in the absence of policy, CBI-E, superintendent evaluation form, and CCA, organization chart. Is there a motion to approve the second reading of policies?
Mr. Mayor,
School Board Member Truman.
I move we approve the second reading of policies BEDB-R, BEDG, ADDA, ADDA-R, DJ-R, CB, CC, CHD, CBI-E, and CCA.
Motion's been made by School Board Member Truman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by School Board Member Johnston. Any discussion on the second reading of policies?
Just my usual thank you to Meg for all of her due diligence on our policies and helping us get through our agendas every single time. So,
School Board Member Johnston.
I'd just like to say that I think that our committee has worked really diligently in the last several meetings to try and thoroughly examine these policies. And I again thank Meg for her help as well. I'm glad, I think I stated this last time, but I'm glad for board members who don't serve on that committee to express their concerns and interest.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the second reading of policies? Roll call vote. School Board Member Archie?
No.
School Board Member Preble?
Yes.
School Board Member Richard?
Yes.
School Board Member Gale?
Yes.
School Board Member Truman?
Yes.
And School Board Member Johnston.
Yes.
The motion passes 5-1. And that brings us to item 13, other information. There's no other information indicated in the packet. Does anyone have anything? Okay, moves on. There, item 14, there's no executive session tonight, so that brings us to item 15. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
School Board Member Truman, is there a
Second.
second? School Board Member Preble, any discussion? On adjourning, roll call vote. School Board Member Archie?
Yes.
School Board Member Preble?
Yes.
School Board Member Richard?
Yes.
School Board Member Gale?
Yes.
School Board Member Truman?
Yes.
And School Board Member Johnston.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0 to adjourn at 7:40 PM. Have a wonderful evening, everyone.